Inside of the extermination centres of the Third Reich during the Second World War, hundreds of thousands of people succumbed to their deaths at the hands of the terrible SS guards and brutal overseers. Most were driven into gas chambers, and inside of Treblinka, up to 900,000 people died inside the site. Treblinka was the second deadliest extermination centre of the Third Reich, and only Auschwitz saw more deaths. The camp was hidden by the forests and trees, so no one could see what was happening. But away from the main extermination area was a small zone known as the Lazaret. This was a false medical facility where those who were not able to walk to the main gas chamber were slaughtered by SS executioners armed with their rifles and pistols. Welcome to the fortress. Today we look at the Lazaret, one of history's most brutal execution areas. As always, to support our channel, please make sure to subscribe. Inside of Treblinka, there were 3 different regions of the camp, with the aim of this site and intention of it to exterminate as many people as possible. Victims arrived inside of the reception area before they were then sent to their deaths, being forced to run through what was known as a tube. This was a fenced-in path which led to the gas chambers where guards drove prisoners with no way out. The gas chambers were fitted with a diesel engine that pumped in carbon monoxide, which killed hundreds of thousands. After this was done, the Sonderkommando prisoners then collected the bodies for them to be burned inside of the ovens in the open air. But for those who were not able to walk to the gas chambers, such as the elderly, they were executed often inside the Lazaret. This translates as infirmary in German, and it was made to look as if it was a medical facility or a small hospital. It was decorated with red crosses, and people believed that they were getting some medical treatment when they were taken there. But the only people waiting for them were executioners armed with their weapons, pistols and rifles. These victims were shot in the Lazaret to ensure that the killing process did not slow down, and there were special executioners who worked here, such as August Meiter. He was known as the Angel of Death of Treblinka, and he later stated at his trial regarding the Lazaret that there were always sick and crippled people in the transports. There were also those who had been shot and wounded en route by the SS, policemen or others who guarded the transports. These ill, crippled and wounded passengers were brought to the Lazaret by a special group of workers. Inside the Lazaret, they placed or lay these people at the edge of the pit. When all the sick and wounded had been brought, it was my job to shoot them. I fired at the nape of the neck with a 9mm pistol. Those shot would fall into the pit. The number of people shot in this way from each transport varied, sometimes 2 or 3, sometimes 20 or even more. They included men, women, young and old, and also children. The Lazaret featured a large pit where bodies were burned, but the victims were sat on the edge of the pit, where an executioner approached them from behind and then executed them. A former prisoner of the camp said of the execution zone that a German with a machine gun is waiting, and with one burst puts them all out of their misery. They fall into a huge fire-filled ditch that occupies most of the area. 2 of Kurland, a Carpo's helpers, try to arrange the piles of corpses so they burn quickly and completely, in order to make room for the new victims that keep streaming in. It was ruthless, and every day there were many people being brought for their executions. Another guard who worked there was Willy Mentz, the gunman of Treblinka, who stated that in the region of the Lazaret there were mass graves, and those who were shot were also laid on the edge of the pit, or grave, where they were shot. Mentz admitted that he shot these victims with his own pistol, and that following this their bodies were covered in lime and were then quickly burned. He also admitted that when prisoners arrived at the site, that there were often as many as 20 people who Mentz shot with his pistol. Another former prisoner claimed of the killing process in the Lazaret that ahead of me a bored sentry sat on a little chair clutching a rifle. Before him down below was a deep pit. At its bottom were heaps of corpses which had not yet been consumed by a fire burning under them. I stopped in my tracks, paralysed with terror. The sizzling half-burnt cadavers emitted grinding and crackling sounds. The flames, once having enveloped them, either dissipated into little jets of smoke or reignited into a blaze which forced firewood and corpses into the devil's embrace. Here and there I could make out the torsos of men and women or little children. The smell of burning flesh reached my nose and prompted a flow of tears. Just then the old men began toddling up the bank 3 or 4 metres high in front of me. Stepping hesitantly, they suddenly caught sight of the pit and its contents. Aware that they had stepped into a trap, The miserable souls tried to escape as best as their exhausted condition permitted. As they scattered across the little platform, however, the guard pumped bullets into their heads and shoved them into the pit. The point of the lazarette inside of Treblinka was to ensure that those who could not walk through the tube to the gas chambers could be executed in secret away from this part of the camp, to make sure that the slaughter was not slowed down. It was a ruthless execution method, as people believed they were getting some form of medical care, but they would be then led out towards a pit where they were slaughtered by gunshot. Thousands died in this area of Treblinka, and it added to the horror and evil of the camp. Thanks for watching. To support our channel, please make sure to subscribe, and once again, thank you so much for watching.